Do you want to know what most people don't know about stopping tantrums? I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach parenting and good communication all over the world through the lens of the principle self-government. And in this video, we're talking about stopping tantrums. In this video, we're going to be talking about what is going on in a tantrum, specifically what's going on inside the brain when a person is having a tantrum, and how can you stop a tantrum before the tantrum even starts. A lot of people get concerned if their child has a tantrum. They don't know what to do. In fact, a lot of times parents start to panic, especially if the tantrum happens in public. What are we going to do if the child is melting down and we've got to get into church or get into school, or they won't get out of the car, or whatever the situation happens to be? People usually are at their worst when someone else is at their worst. Tantrums can happen at all ages. I know that tantrums while children are in their teen years are becoming more and more prevalent. I could talk about this at length. It has a lot to do with entitlement, over-coddling of the children, not teaching the children how to step out of their comfort zones, do hard things, that kind of thing. But I think usually when people think of tantrums, they're usually thinking of younger children, sometimes even toddler-aged children is the, normal thing that we envision in our brains. What I'm going to be talking about today can help you with all children, no matter the ages, whether they are toddlers or whether they are teens. But I just think for the sake of what most people might be thinking when it comes to tantrums, I'm going to focus a lot of my lens on what it's like with little children today. Many people know what a tantrum looks like, they know what it feels like, but they don't know how to stop the tantrums. And because they don't know how to stop the tantrums, they start to panic. As soon as a person panics, they get anxiety, they go to the wrong part of their brain. Once they shift from front brain to midbrain, or even sometimes worst case scenario to back brain, that parent is not equipped to help the person get out of the tantrum cycle. In fact, they can even be feeding the tantrum, making it worse and worse. The last thing that you want to do when a child is having a tantrum is power struggle with them, because that shows the child that this is the way to get understood. And there are so many other great self-government things that you can do, that you can teach your child so that they can get understood in a calm way, in a productive way. Tantrums are not productive. Can we agree about that? There is not a lot that a tantrum does, except for maybe show initially, I'm having a problem. Now, when a child is a baby, they can't communicate very much. They use crying and emotions to show, I'm having a problem, I need help. Then it's up to the parent to do the guesswork to try to figure out how to help that person in that difficult moment. But once a person can use their words, even if they're just minimal toddler baby words, the child now does not need to have a tantrum to get understood. This doesn't mean that a person can't have any emotions, so don't misunderstand me on that. There are many videos on this channel about emotions. And on my website, teachingselfgovernment.com, I have an entire training that was a 3-hour training called The Value and Mastery of Emotions. So I do know emotions are part of a person. They need to be understood. But I also know there are productive emotions and non-productive emotions. And you can help a child learn how to decide which emotions are going to be productive and help them. And how about we teach them that tantrums are non-productive emotions because they get them to the wrong part of their brains. So what happens in the brain of a child when they are having a tantrum? So when you can think clearly, you are in the prefrontal cortex of your brain. This is the cognitive function area of the brain. This is where you can problem solve, where you can analyze, sort things out. You can even self-assess in a very productive way. But as soon as a person starts to feel stressed or anxious or worried or fearful, which can all be things that lead to tantrums or out of control behavior, then a person is usually starting to be triggered by the chemicals in the amygdala, or that middle part of the brain. This is the oldest part of the brain. This is the brain that drives that emotional function. So when a person is allowing the amygdala to control them, then oftentimes they lose a lot of their cognitive abilities. In fact, when you are in the front part of your brain, so some people call that upstairs brain, okay, we're going to talk a little bit later about downstairs brain, but when you're in your upstairs brain or in your prefrontal cortex, you have 100% ability to solve your problems. You've got your full function of the brain to work with. But when you get to that midbrain, so you're halfway downstairs, and you are starting to emotionally process things, the chemicals have adjusted in the brain, and now things are firing differently. You have maybe about 40% ability to problem solve when you're at that stage. If you get all the way to the fight or flight part of the brain, which is what is often called the downstairs brain, when people are trying to help children understand what part of their brain they're in, when they're in full back brain, this is when your emotions, your chemicals have completely taken over. You are the furthest away in your processing from the front brain, or your ability to cognitively reason and problem solve. You have maybe 10% ability to solve your problem at that point. And this is the point where people just get irrational. This is when it's the kicking, the screaming, the biting, the "you don't care." They're yelling irrational things. It's because at this point, they are trying absolutely everything to just maintain some control over themselves. And in order to try to get control over their brain function, they think that the best thing is to emotionally control what's going on outside them. That is when the full-blown tantrum occurs. So what do we do about that? So if you've been subscribed to this channel for a long time, then you know that on here I talk all about self-government. If you haven't subscribed yet, definitely do that, because that's going to help you learn more and more about solving these tantrums. Let's talk about what we do when a person is in that full back brain, or maybe they're just going there and they're midbrain. How do we help them? And how do we prepare them ahead of time to receive this help so that they can hold on to what you're throwing them in the moment? So in the Teaching Self-Government program, it is all about pre-teaching the children and preparing them for success. When a person is self-governed, they have a plan before a moment occurs. When you deliberately train yourself to use certain self-government skills, and in many of the videos on this channel, I talk about the 4 basic skills of self-government. That's the starting place for many children. Those 4 basic skills are following instructions, accepting no answers and criticism, accepting consequences, and disagreeing appropriately. When you teach those 4 basic skills to your children ahead of time, and then you tell them how you're going to handle it if they don't utilize the steps in those skills, then the child is prepared for the conversation that they need to have in the moment when they're not remembering their skills because they're in the wrong part of their brain. Now, just as a help, you do need to know that I have children's books that teach the 4 basic skills to children. If a person learns all 4 of these 4 basic skills, that takes care of 99% of their behavioral problems. So, use something fun to teach the children, get them ready for what's coming. Now, one of those 4 basic skills that I just talked about was the skill disagreeing appropriately. In the skill disagreeing appropriately, a person learns how to communicate in a way where they can be understood, but do in a way that's also non-emotional. If your child learns that skill, they should hopefully be prepared to talk to you about absolutely anything and not feel that they need to have any tantrums. So that would be beneficial, right? Also, those other skills, they give the child some other things that they can do so that they choose not to have a tantrum. For instance, when you follow instructions, you learn how to have a calm face, voice, and body. When you learn to accept no answers and criticism, you learn how to drop the subject. When you learn how to accept consequences, you learn to take responsibility for things and also drop the subject. So learning those 4 basic skills absolutely helps push off tantrums before they even start. But there's more. So pre-teaching. Before you ever get to correcting, you pre-teach the child. You teach them all of those skills ahead of time. But then also, if you sense that the child is starting to be frustrated, concerned, worried, fearful, you pre-teach them about the skill that they could use. You remind them how you want to listen to them if they disagree appropriately, how they can talk to you about something. You remind them that they can tell themselves this is okay and to drop the subject, and that you'll praise them after and you'll talk about how things went well. The pre-teaching skill is vital. Now, there are 3 different ways to pre-teach. I talk about those in my TSG parenting course and in my parenting mastery training that's on my website. But those are key things that you can do, those pre-teaching moments, to help your child see the success that's coming before the problem gets there. This helps them not even get to a place where they need corrections most of the time. But what if they do need corrections? Sometimes the child still has a tantrum despite the very best training that you have done for the child. So what do you do then? Well, now you need another skill. The correction skill is going to be important for you. And if they go completely out of instructional control, which means they are not willing to follow any instruction from their parents, then they might need for you to do what I call intensive teaching with them. There's 2 types of intensive teaching that I teach in my parenting trainings, and one of them is for younger children in the toddler years, and one of them is for children that are a little bit older. So be sure to learn about intensive teaching as well, because this is what you are going to use in the moment when someone has gone all the way to back brain, or they're starting to fall to that downstairs brain and need somebody to throw them a lifeline. When you have some good skills under your belt, then you are able to help your children in a proactive way choose, because self-government's all about choice. Choose to be calm. Choose to accept that teaching, training, and correction from you. They can choose that. They actually want to, but they need the training ahead of time. Otherwise, they may not find the skills all on their own. If you have enjoyed this video, I'm pretty sure you'll love my next video, where I go into a lot more detail about the teaching self-government skills for life, because these are just adult skills. This next video is a full-length class. It's called The Not So Known Secret for Parenting Success. Click on the link to that video now.